real secret to scaling trial teams isn't what you think. I'm Taylor Ernst, 2024 California Lawyer Attorney of the Year. I've educated over 20,000 lawyers and doctors. I've authored the book, The Ernst Way. It's the definitive TBI guide. And I've won trials as both a solo, where there's nobody else, it's just me. And then I've also led a team of 10 lawyers plus, including a $63 million verdict. So here's the truth. The thing that people don't talk about enough is the overwhelm of trial comes from not being specific about what you're focusing on. The overwhelm comes from so much input coming at you that in the brain injury world, it's about cognitive load. And you reduce cognitive load by focusing only on a few things, whether it's you by yourself, as I've been, or leading a team of 10. The way to win back that feeling of overwhelm and not feel like, oh my gosh, I have way too much going on, is you know exactly what you're trying to accomplish every day in trial. You make sure you hit that, and everything else gets turned down a lot because you know exactly what you need to do every day. So TBI trials specifically are overwhelming because the science there's no end to the science. It's infinite. Neurology, psychology, psychiatry, neuropsych, biomex, life care planning, voc rehab, school, work accommodation. The amount of stuff is overwhelming. It drowns most lawyers who can't figure out what to focus on. And I know that because I've been there. I've had the wave go over me and be like, I can't figure out what I should focus on. So really what the goal is you only need the jury to figure out a couple of things. And if you only need the jury to figure out a couple of things, it means you need to figure out what the jury needs to figure out. And that's the secret to scaling, whether it's one person all by yourself, as I've been, or it's a team that you're leading. And the focus is you need to focus every single thing you're doing in trial that day, every witness, exhibit, motion, moment in trial, the jury is sitting next to you, watching you, back to the three most important things. I call them pillars. I talk about them all the time. The three pillars are the goal, and it's how you simplify the cognitive load, align the team, whether it's a team of 2, a team of 5, a team of 10. But really what you're trying to do is align with the jury and have the jury understand, hey, I understand those concepts the lawyers taught us by the testimony that came off the witness stand. You get those couple of concepts through, you win. So traditionally, the old approach was what I went through as a lawyer doing a trial by myself. I had to cover everything. So every day you're worried about what you're going to miss, something the witness isn't going to say, some confusion that's going to get passed on to the jury, and confusion helps the defense. The jury gets lost when there's confusion, when they can't put the dots together. That is generally the setup for a defense winning. And a big team on the opposite side of that, if it's solo and you figured out where you need to go, that's one thing where you don't have to communicate that to anybody else. But if you have a team of 5 or a team of 7, or sometimes a law in motion, a team of 10, every lawyer brings their own frame. And so while you have a lot more resources to use on that trial, every lawyer is trying to do something different with the witness. The cross is different, what they're trying to get out, the traps they're trying to do. Sometimes the significant more detail and truths that all those lawyers that are trying to help are all pointing at different things. You can't have 20 subplots to the whole case. You need it simplified down to the 3. And so the belief that I have come to realize has carried me through again and again is it all comes down to 3 pillars, whether it's you by yourself or as I've been by myself, or the bigger trial teams where I've led trial teams with lots of people and lots of consensus that needs to be built. You need to have everyone get on the same page where they all know where the goal is. If you simplify the whole trial down to 3 things, everything has a test. Does it help get to one of these 3 pillars? And rather than just talk about it in the abstract, one of my last TBI verdicts that came out a week ago was the defendant's actions came to 3 things. The defendant's actions caused a head strike, the forces were significant and real enough to cause a TBI, and the real permanent deficits have lifelong consequences. It's it. Every single fact went to one of those 3 things, and if it didn't, I cut it. So every witness, every expert, every cross, every visual aid, does this advance one of the three pillars? If my answer is yes, it stayed. If not, you leave it. You cut it. You figure out a way to either make it fit one of the pillars or you don't use it. And it's so odd what happens is we had a couple experts we hired and we're like, does it advance one of the three pillars? Nope, we didn't call him. We didn't call the cop. We didn't call the defendant, which people are like, why wouldn't you not do? We didn't need it. It wasn't part of the principles of the case anymore. And it allows for such clarity of what you're doing in trial, the cognitive overwhelm that everyone's so familiar with, where you stay up all night and you're worried about all the different things. We were able to go to bed. I think the latest I was up was maybe 10:30, but it wasn't the traditional freaked out trial that I've been through those two. But we were so specific and clear about exactly what we're trying to do every day that it really made it a lot easier. So I've seen it work. Tiny teams, even with it's just myself, I do the same thing. I come up with the three ideas. Everything needs to be to one of them. So the reason I ended up doing a case by myself was partway through my co-counsel had a family emergency, health related, and left. And I was left doing 5 to 6 witnesses a day by myself. No help. Sounds overwhelming, but I knew what I needed to do every day. It's much easier to execute a game plan when the game plan has some significant simplicity of this is important, this isn't important. That's really what it boils down to. So that's if it's solo. But you also have the ones that, you could do 3, you can do 5. But let's talk about one that we had a team of 10. There was 5 trial lawyers, 3 support lawyers, 2 law in motion. And I remember drawing the 3 pillars on the whiteboard and saying, this was pre-trial, pre-picking a jury. Everything needs to go back to one of these 3 pillars. And with all the different goals and the lawyers and all the different egos and everything going on, it was much easier to say, if it doesn't go to one of these 3 pillars, we don't do it. And it got everybody on the same page. It got everybody focused on the same thing. And that real focus allowed everyone to discuss what the pillars should be, figure out what we needed to do to win, and break it down so that when we did the trial assignments, who's doing what witness, who's defending what depot, who's doing what motion in limine, and everything gets divided up. There's an overarching framework behind all of it that becomes the backbone of the information you're trying to convey to the jury. So breaking it down to the nuts and bolts, how do you do this? We define the 3 pillars early, like way early, like around the time that we're starting to do the motions in limine, we start talking about it pretty significantly, even though we talk about it way before in getting ready to try the case to trial, but we finalize it when we're kind of discussing motions in limine, unless the motions in limine change it. But the idea is every exhibit, every witness, every expert witness is going to do a specific thing with the supporting information for one of those pillars. It allows to assign everything that you need to assign to all the lawyers in a way of context of what you're trying to accomplish at trial. So you also want everybody's buy-in from it. That's a whole other thing, but conviction is half the battle. The other half is skill. If you don't have skill and you have conviction, you can actually do a lot with that. If you have skill without as strong of conviction, there's sometimes some sense that I think the jury gets, but when you have both, that's how with the pillars, it adds significant belief in the case and the ability to win. And it's how you scale the trial team from whether it's 1 person, 3, 5, even up to 10. And it provides the overarching clarity that cuts through all the fear, overwhelm, cognitive bogging down, and getting stuck in the details. Because you can quickly ask, if you're looking for some minute specific thing in one of the depots and you can't find it, does it really matter if it doesn't go to one of the 3 pillars? Really, think about it. So what I do before every trial is exactly this, is I write down the 3. I think if you type it, it doesn't have the same visceral weight. A lot of times I'll put it on a whiteboard or a piece of butcher paper and put the butcher paper on the wall or put it up so that throughout the whole time I'm preparing in the war room, it's sitting in the background and we look at it, we stand up, we point to it, we ask questions. Where does this fit in? We go to it again and again and again. And if it doesn't advance the case story by going to one of the pillars, we cut it. Again, we didn't call a voc rehab. We didn't call a cop. We didn't call certain lay witnesses. Because once you have the message that needs to cut through everything else, the overwhelm is gone because you have such a test of, does it support it? Does it not? Does it support? You keep it. If it doesn't, you need to change it. You need to cut it. So scaling trial teams has nothing to do about headcount. It has nothing to do with more lawyers adding complexity. It has everything to do with clarity. Clarity comes from the pillars, because when you can point to the three things over and over again, it doesn't matter if you're solo, 10-person team. It's the secret to scaling trial teams. And as somebody who's done both and had success with both, this is how I think about it. Trials are won on these three pillars. Nothing more, nothing less. This is TBI Lawyer Secrets. I'm Taylor Ernst, and remember, you get the clarity first, verdicts follow.